I'm Natalie DeFord. Here's a look at our top stories.
Surplus closes its doors, and we find out why.
A PLU senior gets a full-ride scholarship to Yale.
And finally, Sports Talk keeps us updated with all things new, Lute Sports.
All that and more next on News at 9.
PLU's Chemistry Club held its annual desserts and demonstrations event last weekend, where they offered desserts and demonstrated chemical reactions to the PLU community.
Students gathered in the lobby of Reiki Hall to enjoy some exciting demonstrations, but first, they enjoyed some sweet treats. By freezing ice cream in liquid nitrogen, Dippin' Dots were made. Then dry ice was used to cool drinks, and finally, the periodic table of elements was represented by brownies. After the food was gone, the crowd went up to the open labs to take a look at some hands-on demonstrations. Some watched colorful chemical reactions, others experimented with fluorescent goop, and 2 students made a cloud in a bottle.
A couple weeks ago, PLU's Sustainability Department decided to close down Surplus's doors, where students were able to donate and buy used goods from the PLU community. We decided to take a closer look to find out why.
So Surplus started as a way to divert materials from going into the landfill. So we have a lot of things that leave campus from students and the university that are still usable and have value in them. And rather than trying to recycle those, we'd like to get them reused by someone else because that has a lower ecological footprint that way.
As of late, we haven't really been able to get all that many people into here. Really just not affordable for PLU to keep it open anymore. And we actually pay more for a person to staff it every hour than we are earning.
It came up probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, so not too long ago. And what we're realizing is that because we have so many things to do, we can't concentrate on any one thing very well.
It was kind of just random what we sold most of the time, like people just coming in and buying whatever they wanted.
So we get a lot of desks and a lot of file cabinets. The things that are really easy for us to take care of, clothes and shoes. We actually have another agreement with clothing. It's the Susan G. Coleman for the Cure, and there's a pink bin out here, and those 2 bins are actually going to remain. So if people want to drop off books or if they want to drop off clothes or shoes, they can drop them in there.
And we're going to have a Goodwill truck sitting out there outside of the fenced area that will take in anything that's donated from the area, and we'll just give it to them, and then they'll do what they wish with it. They're going to be paying us for all the stuff that they'll come and pick up based on the weight of the truck or something like that. We'll just get a flat rate, and it'll just go back into the university's budget.
This new partnership with Goodwill allows us to keep the materials from going to the landfill and at the same time provide financial incentive for Goodwill to do the good things they do, and it also frees up dollars that the university would otherwise be spending on something else, so we can use those student hours to do other really cool stuff. I am sad to see Surplus go. It's something that's been a lot of fun, so it's kind of an unfortunate time to have to close down our doors because I feel like we're starting to get more of a foothold in the community. But that being said, I think we're going to do really good things with the extra time that we have.
A Choir of the West student has been awarded a full-ride scholarship to Yale University. No, not for law. Yale actually boasts a distinguished music program. And PLU senior Brendan Fitzgerald was accepted into the Institute of Sacred Music. But Fitzgerald isn't studying music here at PLU. He's actually a sociology major.
Back in April, beginning of March, one of my professors called me into their office one day and said, "How would you like to go to Yale?" And I thought he was kidding. I hadn't planned on going to grad school at all. 2 weeks later, I had completed a full graduate application, and 2 weeks after that, I was on a plane to Connecticut, where I auditioned for Yale's School of Music. They called me, and now I'm going for free to Ivy League grad school. The program itself is really widely known. It's basically going to act like a golden ticket to singing professionally. I started out as a music major at PLU and completed 3 years of the program. I then decided that at that time music wasn't something that I wanted to do with my life, so I decided to switch to sociology. The that I didn't need to sort of push myself out of loving music, just to get the degree. So I didn't want to make myself hate it. But after Yale, I'm hopefully going to move to London, sing professionally, and I'm really hoping it'll offer me the opportunity to go travel the rest of Europe. And music has taken me so many places, and I don't ever want that to stop. It's what I have been doing, it's what I love doing, and it's what I want to do later, so it's going to work out great.
Harold fell in love with London during a summer traveling abroad and wants to return there to sing once he completes his graduate program. Though his voice will be missed at PLU, we certainly wish him luck on his journey.
Earlier this month, it was announced that PLU was a finalist in the 2014 Second Nature Climate Leadership Awards. Senior Mariah Rasmussen takes a look to see how the video was made and the bad reaction the video had with some members of the PLU community.
PLU's stop-motion video on carbon onsetting took sixth place in the 2014 Second Nature Climate Leadership Awards. Katie Martell, the producer, talks about the process of creating the stop-motion video.
Well, the CLA video was a big challenge because we started off with a concept, and the concept is carbon onsetting. And it can be a little bit complicated, so kind of difficult to explain in a short video. The objects that we used in the video are all made from felt for the most part, and I handmade them with my assistant, and a couple other students helped out, but we basically went to the fabric store, went to the craft store, got all the supplies that we needed, cut out the objects, drew on them, just kind of tried to make things look not realistic by any means, but just playful and fun, but still recognizable.
The overall production process took upwards of 40 hours. Martell gives some perspective on this.
There are 60 images for every 5 seconds in the video, so if you think about a 3.5-minute video, that's a lot of still images and a lot of work going into every single one of those.
Although the video gained recognition from the Climate Leadership Awards, some PLU students seemed to be disappointed with it. Katie Geisbert said, "I'm saddened by the extent to which this video perpetuates rather than challenges dominant, simplistic, and racially problematic conceptualizations of Africa and South America, common in the imagination of many people in the United States." Geisbert was not alone in the disappointment, as other students also commented that they were upset by the video. Donna Gibbs, Vice President of Marketing and Communications, says,
"We took a look at the comments from Kate and Katie and Kimberly, and I think they bring up some really interesting points that are nuanced discussions that can't always be discussed in a 4-minute video format or in a comments post. And I think that's one of the challenges of online communication. Dialogue that they brought up points out the fact that a lot of these sort of cultural biases are ingrained in all of us, and it's the easy go-to when you've got a very short period of time to get a point across. We tend to go to those cultural stereotypes that everybody can identify, and we don't even realize we're doing it. So I commend the students for bringing up some very valid points and creating more dialogue and making this ultimately a richer opportunity.
Gibbs explains the reasons for why the team chose to use this kind of video.
We're always trying to break through that barrier, that 8-second barrier of attention span, and grab somebody's attention. And we knew we didn't want to have just another talking head video like many of the other universities did. So we decided to have some fun with it and to do something that would be a departure, would grab attention, and might engage people in actually listening to the message.
4 more crew members from the South Korean ferry that sank have been arrested. The captain of the ship is already facing a series of criminal charges for his role in the sinking. The latest arrests bring the total number detained to 7. The chief prosecutor of the investigation says 2 first helmsmen, 1 second helmsman, and the chief engineer are now under arrest. He said they could face indictment on several charges. The captain and 2 other crew members were arrested over the weekend.
Every college student's favorite video streaming service, Netflix, has decided to increase its prices. The streaming video company says it plans to raise subscription costs for new customers by $1 or $2 in the next few months. Existing customers paying $7.99 per month will not see a change in their current rate or for a generous time period. This news comes after the company's public fight with some internet service providers over waning streaming speeds. The ISPs want Netflix to pay a fee to offset the cost of delivering its data-heavy content.
Google Street View is now allowing you to travel back in time. The internet giant has added a new feature to its Street View maps. Now you can look at past Street View maps images dating back to 2007 on the desktop version of Google Maps. Google says the new time-lapse feature will allow you to see how places have changed over time, including the Freedom Tower in New York City and the World Cup Stadium in Brazil.
The Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts is now taking to the skies. The luxury hotel chain announced that starting February of next year, it will be flying high with its very own jet. The jet will feature leather flatbed seats, in-flight Wi-Fi, and what the hotel chain calls globally inspired cuisine. The retrofitted Boeing 757 will be used for special vacation packages. Right now, 3 packages are available for reservations, ranging in price from $69,000 to $119,000 per person based on double occupancy. The packages include a 24-day journey that takes you to Bora Bora, India, and Australia. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this commercial break.
Next is Beyond the Brochure with Amy Jones. This week she'll be sitting down with Dan Stell, ASPLU's new Vice President for the upcoming school year.
The bill we just passed is called the Washington State DREAM Act. It's also called the Real Hope Act. It was a Senate bill that just passed. It's a simple idea. It gives all kids who graduate from Washington high schools who have been in the state for at least 3 years access to financial aid. It's not a giveaway, it just means that they can compete. And a lot of kids that were undocumented weren't able to compete for that financial aid, and now they can.
So here's the deal. I can show you a bunch of footage of third world countries with starving children and roofless shacks. But you've seen that all before. I can play on your emotions and explain to you why you have it so good and you owe it to the world to go out there and help others. But you already know that. The truth is, this is nothing new to you, but the world is still waiting for people like you. So what are you waiting for? Peace Corps. Life is calling. How far will you go?
Welcome back to News at 9. I'm Amy Jones with Beyond the Brochure, and this week we'll be interviewing the new Vice President of ASPLU, Dan Stell. So welcome aboard. So how long have you been involved with student government overall?
So I've been involved with ASPLU now this will be my second year, starting third year next year. I started as a ASPLU hall senator. So as a freshman, I lived in Hong, and then my sophomore year I lived in Hinderley. And so once with the Senate restructure that occurred, they had hall senators, so that I felt since I lived in both halls that ergo I would make a good Hinderley Hall senator. And then this year I was an off-campus senator, again as part of the Senate restructure, to have greater representation on campus for different areas of students. So I was a off-campus senator this year.
So overall, you've been involved in student government for your university life, not prior to that? So in my high school years, I was involved in quasi-student government group called Student Principal Ambassadors, which was separate from our school's ASP, which was more planned around different kind of programming and different kind of events. Whereas the Student Principal Ambassadors at my school were much more liaisons between the principal himself and then different kind of rumors and student kind of conversations. And I would actually say that parallels more of what ASPLU does here as a liaison between student life and the administration itself. So I've been involved with student government for a while. So why did you decide to run for vice president?
So I knew I wanted to get more involved with ASPLU this year, have a stronger say in where I wanted to see the organization go. And so one aspect of that is I really wanted to build a stronger network connecting ASPLU to different areas around campus. So build that stronger relationship between ASPLU and its partners in the Women's Center and the Diversity Center and all the centers around campus, frankly. And ultimately, I felt that the greatest possible way for me to do that is as the vice president who is in charge of the board of directors, which really works with these different organizations around campus to bring knowledge and different ideas and legislative processes to the Senate. So I felt that was where I wanted to see the greatest change.
So what has been your favorite thing so far that you've done with ASPLU?
My favorite thing so far with ASPLU is actually last year as a senator. I remember my freshman year talking with my friends who went to different universities, and they thought it was odd that our university didn't have the library open 24 hours during dead and finals week. Mm-hmm. So I remember thinking that would be a great Senate project. So I made it a point, though, that it wasn't just something I was going to do on my own initiative. I was going to make sure it was student voice led. So I did make it a point to get signatures of as many students as I could possibly gather. So I gathered around 400 different student signatures to present to the administration to say there is a need for this and there's a want for this, and they definitely listened to me. And so it was my sophomore year that the university made it so the library is open during 24 hours during dead and finals week, and it's been encouraging to see them continually interested in that and it happening since that point.
Okay, so what would you tell us about you and your president, Sarah Smith? Mm-hmm. What would you say about your vision for ASPLU this next year?
So our vision for ASPLU, I know the word transparency is thrown around a lot with different election processes, but we are actually quite committed to that in the fact that we're thinking about new and innovative ways for ASPLU itself to reach out to the student body. Again, Sarah Smith is much more focused on the individual students themselves, so working on more unique PR campaigns such as videos and also just talking more on the individual level, whereas my focus, I would say, is, again, creating that stronger network around campus and making sure to break down this kind of ASPLU wall that people seem to think we have, and we really don't want that to be there in the first place. And then also, secondly, is we really want to revamp and restructure our programming within ASPLU.
So what exactly would revamping the programming?
So we're hoping to make the programs director much more of a delegator of tasks rather than trying to instigate new and innovative programming around campus. So they'd be setting up situations where they'd be sitting on a committee that interacts with people who plan more of like the fun kind of laser tag, Lollapalooza, and the dances and structures such as that. And then there's also the academic programming, which they will also sit on, and they'll have programmers under them. And so we're trying to make it so programming within ASPLU is much more self-contained, such as like Impact is, mm-hmm. where it's still very much part of the organization, but it can function day to day without so much oversight.
Speaking of Lollapalooza, which is on May 10th, can you give us a clue as to what we're going to see there?
So a lot of our effort has been focused towards Lollapalooza this year. We're hoping to have a little bit of everything for students. Our main headliner is, again, Parade of Lights, which is a band where we're bringing up from Los Angeles, which has more of an electronic feel to it. But we're also, because we have historically in the past been accused of being too like hip hop heavy, but we're still going to have some aspects of that. But we're trying to diversify what kind of music we have at Lollapalooza, and with that we'll have student groups as well. So we're trying to get as broad a spectrum as we possibly can.
Okay, so are there any other upcoming events besides Lollapalooza?
So with Lollapalooza, the biggest thing that we're focusing on, again, is Diversity Week, which is also the week right before Lollapalooza, which Sarah Smith, being the previous diversity director, is having immense fun planning as well with her new presidential duties. And also, so the biggest focus there is the Friday before Lollapalooza, we're planning a drag show, which hasn't happened on campus for a while. And so we're happy to bring that back and bring that experience back to PLU for the students.
Speaking of events, I heard that the spring formal has been canceled. Can you give us some information as to why?
So that is true. Spring formal has been canceled. It's due to the fact that things fell through in the planning and setting up for it. And so the program that would have happened if we kept going with spring formal would have been under par with what we expect of ourselves and what we want to give to the students. So we felt it would be better to structure our efforts in other areas, so really focusing on Diversity Week, really focusing on Lollapalooza, and also having more kind of student care events during Dead Week like we normally have. So in addition to having the massage areas, which we normally had, we're also hoping to get a oxygen bar here on campus as well. And so other kind of more low-key, but also very effectual programming to reach out to students.
Another issue that's recently been going around the student body is the idea of the tuition hike. Can you give us some information about that?
To my knowledge, I'm not educated on that yet. I will be more informed once I have the first Board of Regents meeting, which I will be attending May 2nd and 3rd. But I would like to clarify some of the numbers that are going around the internet. The biggest one is that they're seeing a 19.9% increase in tuition. While that is a very scary number, that's not the right number. The right number is 4.5% increase. So they're not going to increase tuition by a fifth, I promise you that.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so your pet project would be the programming board, and you've talked a lot about transparency. How exactly do you plan on implementing these things through your PR projects?
Well, I would like to say that it's not so much as a pet project as it's a continuing thing from different executives. So the previous executives, Aaron Steelquist and Emily Bishop, were really building up this momentum for restructuring programming. So with that, it's just the continued conversation, and we're hoping to implement some of the changes that they recommended for next year. And with these, the transparency conversations, we are already having senators plan different videos, and we're having discussions on different and new ways of reaching out to students. So we have Fill-Me-In Fridays, which are happening in the library, where we have senators actually just sitting in the library and talking to different students in the area about different topics that we've assigned during Senate meetings.
Finally, how can Lutes get involved with ASPLU?
Actually, ASPLU is waiting for Lutes to get involved with us. We really are, we lead by serving, so we only act when we know that there's a student need or a student desire for something here on campus. And so I really want students to know that you can come to individual senators with an idea, and we'll love to help you creating legislation. Or if you have a legislative planning already in store, like you can make your own bill and present it to Senate meetings. Also, Senate meetings are totally open. So I feel like that needs to be emphasized, is that we meet every Tuesday, 6:30, either in the Regency room now, we're moving to a more visible location, or in UC 133, which is where we normally have met. And along with that, we're always looking for volunteers for our different kind of programming. So those who are involved, who want to be more involved with Lollapalooza or the dances, we'd love to bring them on and have their voice added to our own.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for tonight. Stay tuned after the commercial break for Sports Talk with Giancarlo Santoro.
This new phone is awesome. It has made my life so much easier. You know, I get kind of bored when I'm driving and I need to know what's going on. So now, with this huge screen, a keyboard, and a ton of apps, I can get a text and write back right away, no problem. It's like I barely even have to look at it.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back to News at 9. I'm Giancarlo Santoro, and you're watching Sports Talk. The PLU men's tennis team ended their Northwest Conference regular season this past weekend after losing to George Fox 8-1 and Lewis and Clark 7-2. First-year Sam Statter took the lone victory against George Fox as he won the #1 singles spot against Justin McLean. Statter won 6-4 and 6-4. Against the Lewis and Clark Pioneers, sophomore Jake Yanello beat Morgan Joyce in the #4 singles spot. Statter and first-year James Abuko earned PLU the other victory by winning 8-5 in doubles play. The postseason was oh so close for the women's tennis team. All they had to do was win against Lewis and Clark this past weekend and they were in. But they failed to do so, losing 6-3. Sophomore Samantha Lund beat her opponent in the #2 singles spot 7-5 and 6-2, while first-year Emily Bower also won her singles match, beating Allison Schneider 7-5 and 6-0. The PLU doubles team also came out on top in a team that was comprised of Bower and fellow first-year Megan Bayers, who won 8-2. The PLU baseball team is still in the hunt for a postseason berth, as the Lutes are currently in 4th place in conference standings, good enough for the last spot for the postseason. This past weekend, the Lutes played 4 games, winning 3. PLU took on lowly Lewis and Clark, who has only won 9 wins on the season. The Lutes bested Lewis and Clark 6-2 in their first matchup, and things only got worse for the Pioneers after that. In the second game between the conference foes, PLU blew the game open in the second inning as they scored 4 runs. Lewis and Clark struggled to mount a comeback and eventually lost 7-3. The Pioneers finally redeemed themselves in the third and final game against the Lutes. Scoring 4 runs in the first inning, Lewis and Clark didn't look back. While the Lutes did score 3 runs in the third inning and once in the 8th inning, thanks to a solo home run from junior Colin Nilsson, PLU came out on the losing end 8-4. In the fourth and final game of the weekend, PLU squared up against Willamette. Sophomore Tyler Thompson led the way for the Lutes as he smashed 2 home runs in the game. One of the home runs was a grand slam, and the Lutes went on to win 11-5. The Lutes close out their season against Pacific in a 3-game series this weekend at home. While most of PLU's spring sports have already come to a close or are nearing the finish line, there are still 2 teams left competing for glory. Coming off a good showing at the Northwest Conference Multi-Championships in Salem, Oregon, a little over a week ago, the PLU track and field team will make the short trip across town to rivals UPS to compete in the Northwest Conference Championships this weekend. On the men's side, the team will look to improve on a 4th place finish back in 2013, while the women will also look to better a 5th place finish last year. A strong group of Lute throwers on the men and women's team will do their best to bring silverware back to PLU. To catch the meet, head over to UPS Baker Stadium. Action begins 10 a.m. Friday and 10:30 a.m. Saturday. While the PLU track and field team will be running, hurdling, and throwing their way to victory, a very different kind of championship will be taking place over in California. This Saturday and Sunday, the PLU women's rowing team will head to Lake Natoma in Folsom, California to compete in the WIRA Championships. Coming off a loss in the Lamberth and Mayer Cups to UPS 2 weeks ago, the Lutes will want to get a win under their belt before finishing the season. Following this weekend's trip, the Lutes will close out the year with a trip to the Dexter Reservoir in Lowell, Oregon to row in the NCRC Championships on May 3rd. Well, that's all the time that we have this evening. Be sure to check us out anytime at massmedia.plu.edu. Join me, Sam Horn, and the rest of the News at 9 crew next week for our last show of the school year. I'm Giancarlo Santoro. For all the News at 9 staff, good night.